is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and today we're in California. I'm here introducing the Stone Slayer series, a tapestry woven from reincarnated souls, revealing a lost world and an empire teetering under the weight of secrets and choices rippling across lifetimes. I am joined here with the author and the story healer, Candace Lynn. Thanks so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, Gary. I'm glad to be here.
I'd like to start off a little bit. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's begin with a prophetic dream, really, at age 12, about a family friend's death that was really the catalyst for your spiritual journey. Can you kind of start us there and tell us where this began?
Well, that dream happened the very night the woman died. And my mom and I, in the dream, went to visit her in the hospital. And the nurse said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you can't see Mrs. Smith." That's a made-up name. She died at 4 this morning. And the next morning I was setting the table. It was Saturday, and I was, that was my job, set the table for breakfast. And my mom came in teary-eyed and said, "Mrs. Smith died at 4 in the morning this morning." And, I thought, gee, that's interesting. I didn't say anything about it, but it was like, do, outer limits. Things may not work the way they're supposed to, or rationally or logically. It was like, it was a catalyst. It did open my mind to the wider realities, as I put it.
Interesting. Quite a prophetic spark that began everything for you. I mean, after decades of keeping that experience really private, what finally prompted you to share that story? And did that openness change or maybe even enhance your connection with your readers as well as those around you?
Well, it was time as I got further and further into writing the series and changed the name and found that there was a demon lurking in there that I hadn't known about. I decided that it was just time for me to tell the full story of how I've lived and what I've experienced and why that has brought me to writing this series. Because believe me, I covered the business world for many years as a business reporter and then did business writing myself. And writing in the business world don't get no respect. It's the Rodney Dangerfield. All right. If I had any talent in math or, analytics or anything, I would have done that like a shot. But I'm kind of a one-trick pony. Writing is my thing. And not long after that prophetic dream, if you will, I read The Lord of the Rings, as many people in my generation did when they were young. And it sparked a story in me. This character walked into my mind, and she was tall, and she was mouthy, and she was strong-willed and tough-minded, and spoke her piece when men didn't want her to, all right? And that was the beginning of the whole story, the kernel. I spent decades figuring out who this character was. What was her society like? What was her family like? What was going on? I mean, literally decades thinking about it or daydreaming or however you want to put it. All right. And it led me down some very strange roads. I ended up reading Theosophist Madame Blavatsky, and I ended up reading things like The Spear of Destiny and a lot of Edgar Cayce about Atlantis and all that. And it was just grist for the mill. But when it finally came forth, and it first came forth in 1998, it was like it was always there. I finally realized a lot of things, and I knew I could finally, after decades and several false starts, sit down and start writing.
You're talking about a character that evolved over many years. I mean, you spent many years as a successful business journalist in the high-stakes world of the newspaper wars back in Dallas. Did your training in factual, objective reporting kind of influence or maybe even clash with your deep dive into the wider realities of spirituality?
Well, one of the things that my experience in reporting taught me is that facts are slippery little devils. You phone one source and you talk. looks like the story's this way. You phone another source and talk. Oops, no, the story has taken a turn. So what we regard as fact is in fact very colored by our perspectives, our perceptions, and the only thing you can do is be fair to all parties and present all viewpoints. And that's what I tried to do as a business reporter. And another thing, when I was at the Dallas Times Herald, we had multiple daily deadlines. So I was always writing, always under the gun, always producing multiple stories. And what it taught me was to write fast and get going and just get it out there and then come back and noodle with it.
Get those ideas on paper as quickly as you can, then come back and refine from there.
Yes.
Absolutely. Your Stone Slayer series is described as a fictionalized autobiography. I mean, it's based on 4 of your own past lives. How did the idea for this series kind of come about?
Well, I didn't realize back at the beginning when I was, 12, 13, and I first met this character named Helen, I didn't realize that I was her in a past life. That came many decades later. But I was very drawn to her. Her emotions were my emotions. I mean, I felt like she felt so familiar. And well, she was. I was her. Now, I can't prove that past lives exist. And it's not really about proving it. It's about taking what I went through in that lifetime and other lifetimes that are related to it and setting down the story. Because to me, those people were real. They lived and they were buried by a global cataclysm. So their story deserves to see the light of day. And it's just kind of been what you'd call a burr under my saddle for decades. So since I can write, that's what I'm doing. I'm writing the story.
That is fascinating. Like I say, it's not a matter of proving this, it's just the idea of getting this out. What was it like remembering these lives, and how do you navigate the vulnerability of putting your soul's history really into a high fantasy framework?
It's funny. Other people have said, one of my late wife's clients was telling me, oh, I could never just bare my soul like this in print. And to me, it's like the risk is not doing it. All right. The risk is holding back. And I find the more that I write and the more I uncover, it gives me a chance as a story healer to heal those wounds. And it is a good story. So I know that since I went through it and that which is most intimate is also most universal, all right, people will resonate to it. And by their reactions, I know that people have.
I definitely want to touch on the story healing side that you offer. Let's start off first of all in your book. In book 1, Scandal. I mean, the scandal isn't just a mishap. It's a political weapon that can dismantle dynasties, really. What inspired you to build this fantasy world where reputation and public perception are just as dangerous as physical combat, probably?
Well, because that's the way life is, all right? There has to be some element in fantasy that ordinary people in this world can relate to, or else they're really not going to get it. So I was surprised myself to find out how really, truly political this story is. But it's told really by an insider. The first chapter is a story within a story about how one of the survivors, who is herself at the top of the social food chain and has a lot to say, starts setting down the story, and then you flip into the actual tale with all the characters. So I wanted, because it is a dark tale. I mean, I'm just now beginning to admit that it's really dark. A lot of nasty things happen. And yet there is hope and light and survivors. So that's the way I sort of set it up, so that as you go along that somebody you care about, more than somebody you care about, will survive and will go on, because it just gets pretty dire. And I've been thinking, boy, do I really want to keep writing this? And something compels me. it has to come out.
Interesting way, I think, that you presented that to your readers. I mean, the title Stone Slayer suggests a deep connection to the earth or specific artifacts. Without
Yeah.
giving too much away on the book, can you kind of explain the significance of the stones in this series? I mean, are they literal objects of power, or do they represent something maybe more symbolic?
Well, they are literally objects of power, but they also represent something more symbolic. So it's, see, all of the above. All right. They are stones, they radiate power, and that power can be used for healing and good, or it can be used for very evil things and destruction. And there are the diabolic forces wanting to use the power of the stones for destruction and other things, and chaos and madness. And then there are those who possess a green stone and who only desire to heal and rebuild with it. So, it's the typical, good versus evil, but with, I hope, a little more nuance.
A little bit of hope definitely is something that I think most of the testimonials out there, the reviews that I looked at. In book 2, Fallout, the title Fallout suggests that the characters are now living with the wreckage, really, of the scandals and secrets revealed in book 1. How does that shift from instigating a scandal to now surviving the aftermath kind of change the pace and even the tone of the second installment, would you say?
The second installment is really about how a father and daughter who are two total strangers to each other finally reconcile, because it's not, oh, gee, Daddy, I found you. Isn't that great? Love, love, love. No, no, not with Helen. Helen was all spitting and her mother's friend called her, it's hard to warm up to a porcupine shooting quills. But that was just the wounds that she had, the wounds that her father had. So those two are coming together. And yes, there's a whole bunch of political fallout and danger because Helen's true parentage comes to light, and her father's enemies jump on the chance to bring him down. So yes, there's a whole bunch of personal and political all going on at the same time, and the road gets pretty rocky at times. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, so at the heart of it, we're talking about a father and a daughter relationship there. In Fallout, your character's ability as an energy shifter becomes more prominent. Are there personal or even physical costs when he taps into this power during that escalating conflict, would you say?
Well, there can be personal costs, but the power of the stone that Helen has is truly healing and nurturing and supporting. But at this point, she still doesn't know the full potential of that stone. But it does give her support emotionally at a very deep level. She's not consciously aware of it. So all in all, it's really just about a father and daughter trying to grow into a family instead of being total strangers, all the while beset by just ridiculous rules and regulations and people who are outraged because it's politically convenient to be outraged, not because they particularly care one way or the other. So
Interesting.
that's upsetting.
We see so much of that today as well. I mean, your character starts as an exile and evolves into a pivotal player in a revolution, really. Is he still motivated by the desire to clear his name, or has his mission kind of transformed into something much larger than himself, would you say?
Well, the character, the father, unfortunately doesn't last the whole series. All right. So yes, he will undergo a trial, and that's in the coming book, book 3, Payback. He will undergo a trial, and sort of his name is cleared. But truly, the evolution is with Helen and her descendants.
Yeah.
And yes, the soul of the father will return, and definitely has issues to sort through and explore and come at them from a different perspective.
Interesting. In the last book, book 3, the word payback seems to maybe carry a double meaning. I mean, it can imply justice or it can imply revenge. In this final chapter, How did you distinguish between him seeking a righteous resolution for his people versus falling to the trap of a personal vendetta?
Well, that's something that he does wrestle with throughout the series, which will be at least, I'm thinking, 24 books. So book 3 is just another step along the way, although it is an important step. Actually, when that soul of the father comes back, trying to seek that righteous resolution does become the central quest, if you will. But there are an awful lot of obstacles in the way, and not everybody wants that. So it's an interesting dynamic, and a lot of conflict arises from it.
Interesting dynamic. I mean, I love the legend of Stone Slayer has loomed over the entire trilogy. Without giving away the ending, does the reality of becoming this legendary figure kind of differ from the stories he grew up hearing? I mean, would you say that he finds the role of savior to be a burden or a liberation?
Actually, the role of savior is a burden, and it's really not necessary because a savior assumes that people don't have any ability to help themselves. And that's one of the lessons this character learns in the lives as that soul goes along. What is the character, the soul's responsibility, and what the true role of a leader is. And that is not to hold power and lord it over people. A true leader inspires people to find their own solutions and come together and help each other. It's a true leader seeks to bring out the best in people, not manipulate them with power.
A tale as old as time. We're talking about power that can be used for the benefit of all. I mean, I know we've piqued the curiosity of my viewers out there. Before we let you go, can you educate the viewers what a Sunan story healer is for those who are unfamiliar with this modality?
Well, Sunan story healing works in the energy of the emotional body. Some people call it the subconscious, because what really is bugging us are self-judgments and vows to self that are hidden in our subconscious, our emotional body, and stuck there. And in Sunan story healing, we go in gently and we love them and we bring them up and we help people make a new decision and let go of them. And that's where healing truly begins, because self-judgment is the ultimate origin of all disease and disease. So that's what Sunan story healing is. And honestly, it just surprised the heck out of me that it has very ancient origins with the, shall we say, interdimensional being named Magari that my characters interact with. So that's the origins of Sunan are very ancient.
I mean, these stories are amazing. I think the people out there are going to go out and read the book. I mean, the stories that we make up in our mind, they can keep a person stuck really in a repetitive, painful pattern. So are the mechanics of soul healing, story healing, much more than just talk therapy, would you say?
Definitely more than talk therapy. Talk therapy addresses the mental body, the mind, the conscious mind. Sunan story healing goes and works in the emotional body, the subconscious, because those stories and destructive, repetitive patterns are locked into place by self-judgment. Self-judgment is that mystery that psychologists call internalizing, all right? Self-judgment is exactly how you internalize ridiculous stories like, I am guilty, I am worthless, I am this, that, and the other thing. You judge yourself, and consciously you have no idea that you've done it. And in Sunan, we go to those self-judgments, the ones you are prepared to examine, and we help you lift them up, examine them, make a new decision, release the self-judgment, forgive yourself, forgive anybody else involved, and take in unconditional love from our Creator as the healing. That's the process.
I can tell you this has been educational as well as fascinating. I'm sure my viewers will check out your website as well. Viewers, let's take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. What you're going to see is her website. On the website, you can find her books and learn more about this author. healer and paranormalist. Follow her on LinkedIn and sign up for her newsletter. Once again, that is Candace Lynn, weaving words into wider realities. This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and if you don't know, now you know.